My girlfriend said, "If you're broke, I'm leaving." That sentence used to piss me off more than anything else. It felt judgmental, condescending, and at the time completely wrong. I remember laughing it off, telling them they were paranoid, that they didn't understand her like I did. But looking back, that single warning was the first domino in a long, slow collapse I refused to see coming. The truth is, I didn't want to believe them. Not when things felt good. Not when Madison smiled at me like I was the center of her universe. Not when she curled up next to me in my downtown Seattle loft, telling me she felt safe with me, a word that now rings with a meaning I didn't fully grasp then. I'm Ethan Walker, 32, owner of a software consulting firm that's done well enough to give me a comfortable life. I'm not wealthy enough to buy islands or launch rockets, but I'm doing fine 6 figures, solid investments, a waterfront loft, and the kind of financial stability most people my age are still chasing. Then came Madison Clark, 29, gorgeous, magnetic, the type of woman who walks into a room and makes everyone stop mid-sentence. We met at a charity gala. She laughed at my jokes, touched my arm when she talked, leaned in like she already knew she wanted to be part of my life. And I fell for her hard and fast. For 18 months. She lived in my world, and 8 of those months she literally lived in my loft. We traveled, we drank good wine, we had spontaneous weekend trips she loved to brag about. She made everything feel alive. And I let myself believe that made the cost worth it, financial and emotional. But cracks began to show. Thin at first, hairline fractures along the edges of what looked like a perfect relationship. My best friend, Jordan, caught the first one. He said it quietly at my birthday dinner 3 months ago. Right between the steak course and desert dude. You ever notice she only gets excited when you talk about expensive stuff? I brushed him off. Told him he was imagining things. Except he, WASN, single quotes, then Marcus, my business partner, said his piece. Man, every time you mention saving money, she gets moody. Like actually mad. You don't see that. And again, I defended her. Told him he was being judgmental, unfair. Told him Madison cared about me. Not the money. But then Tyler, my cousin, the chillest, most unbothered human on earth, looked at me across a pool table with a seriousness that didn't fit his usual vibe. Look, dude. Just pay attention. Watch how she acts when money's tight versus when you're spending freely. And suddenly, I couldn't unsee it. One weekend, I suggested we cook at home instead of going out. Madison's reaction. A full 2-day pout and a dramatic sigh every time she walked past the kitchen. You're getting boring, she muttered once, like it was an objective fact. Another time, I mentioned maybe moving to a smaller apartment temporarily so I could save for a house. She didn't argue. She didn't even pretend to consider it. She just shut down. Eyes distant, fingers tapping her phone, conversation dead. It wasn't the money itself. It was her attitude around it. Madison never offered to split anything. Groceries, I paid. Utilities, I paid. Rent, also me. Her startup, a lifestyle blog, made around $200 a month. And somehow that was her permanent reason for never contributing. Still, I kept telling myself she'd grow, she'd change. She'd show me something real if I just waited long enough. I was lying to myself, and I knew it. Then came 2 weeks ago. My CFO mentioned a possible rough quarter. Nothing devastating, just cautious talk. That night at dinner, I mentioned it lightly. Madison didn't flinch, but her first words, her instinctive, immediate reaction were, "That doesn't affect our Turks and Caicos trip, right? I already told everyone we're going." Not a single question about me, not a hint of concern, just panic over whether she'd have to explain to her friends why she wasn't vacationing in a luxury resort. I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling while she slept next. To me, like the world was perfect. That was the moment the doubt finally sank its claws in. And by morning, I had made a decision, dangerous, risky, maybe even cruel. But I needed clarity. Because somewhere deep down, I already knew the truth. I was going to test her. Loyalty, not to punish her, not to trap her, but to finally see the reality I'd been too afraid to face. And the irony, the moment I chose to test her was the moment I started to hope I'd been wrong. I didn't tell anyone about the plan, not Jordan, not Marcus, not even Tyler. If I told them, they would have tried to talk me out of it, call it childish, call it manipulative, call it anything but what it really was, necessary. Because when you've been living with an uncertainty that gnaws at your ribs like an animal, clarity becomes its own kind of salvation. The setup took 3 solid days. I called in favors from people I trusted, people who wouldn't ask questions. My accountant friend read, drafted fake documents, tax liens, debt notices, operational loss summaries, all stamped, all official looking enough to fool anyone who didn't know how to read them. Then I called my landlord, a guy I'd known since my early 20s, back when I still rented a shoebox apartment near Capitol Hill. He heard my plan and just sighed. "Damn, Ethan. You sure you want to do this?" "Yeah, I need to know," I told him. He didn't push. He agreed to slip a fake eviction notice under my door on Friday. Next step, the car. I moved my Audi to Marcus's garage and borrowed his beat-up 2009 Civic. The thing rattled, like it was held together by prayer and duct tape. But that was the point. I changed my bank settings so my credit cards would decline at checkout, not permanently, but enough to sell the story. I even transferred most of my money into an account Madison didn't know existed. By Friday evening, everything was in place, and that's when the nerves hit me. What if she passed the test? What if she stayed? What if she held me and told me we'd figure it out together? A small part of me, one that still believed in the version of her I fell for, wanted that. But the other part, the part that woke up at 3 a.m. replaying every red flag, told me I already knew how this would go. When I walked into the loft that night, Madison was on the couch, legs crossed, scrolling through a page of designer handbags. Gucci, Dior, Saint Laurent. The light from her phone illuminated her face like she was studying sacred scripture. "Hey, babe," I said, trying to sound defeated but not theatrical. "We need to talk." She didn't look up at first. "About what?" "It's serious." That got her attention. She finally set her phone down and looked at me with those wide, concerned eyes she used to wear whenever she wanted something. "What happened?" I took a breath, let my shoulders drop, forced a tremor into my voice. "The business. It's basically bankrupt, Maddie. We lost 3 major clients. There are legal issues with contracts. My accounts are frozen while we sort it out." Her eyebrows pinched together, confusion, not concern. "How bad is it?" "Like bad, bad." "I might lose everything," I said softly. "The loft, the car. I even had to borrow money from my parents to cover basics." For a moment, just one, her face froze. Not sadness, not sympathy, calculation, double quote. "So, what does this mean for us?" "Us. Funny how that word suddenly felt like a negotiation term. "It means things are going to be tight for a while," I explained. "Maybe 6 months. Maybe a year. I might have to move back in with my parents until I can stabilize everything." Silence. A long, heavy silence that felt like watching a building slowly, inevitably crumble. "Need to think," she said finally, her voice soft, but not emotional, measured, organized, already planning. She walked to the bedroom without another word. I stood there, staring at her retreating figure, wondering how 18 months could shrink into something so small, so hollow, so transactional. She didn't ask if I was okay. She didn't ask how she could help. She didn't even ask what happened. Just, asterisk, what does this mean for us? Then, I need to think. Asterisk, and she did think. Long enough to come to the decision I dreaded and expected at the same time. The next morning, I woke to the sound of drawers sliding open. Madison was packing. Not casually, not hesitantly, precise, like she'd rehearsed this moment long before I ever suspected anything was wrong. "What are you doing?" I asked. She didn't look at me. I think I should stay with my sister for a bit. Give you space to figure things out. Space? I just told you I'm in crisis. Exactly. You need to focus. I don't want to get in the way. Madison, I said quietly. This is when couples support each other. She zipped her suitcase with a shrug. You're overwhelmed. I'll just make things harder. Her excuses were so thin I could see daylight through them. By noon, she was at the door, luggage in hand, calling an Uber. When Madison's Uber pulled away, I stood there with this strange, numb clarity settling over me. It didn't feel like heartbreak. It didn't even feel like betrayal. It felt like someone finally turned on the lights in a room I'd been stumbling around in for months. His clarity was a currency, and I decided to spend it on myself. And once everything was visible, there was no going back. Sunday afternoon, I decided I wasn't going to sit in that emptiness. I was going to close this chapter on my terms. I grabbed the keys to Marcus's old Civic, the one I'd borrowed for the fake bankruptcy, and drove straight to the Porsche dealership. There was a guard's red 911 I'd been eyeing for months, and for the first time in a long time, buying something didn't feel like compensating for loneliness. It felt like reclaiming myself. I signed the papers, got the keys, and when I drove out of that lot, engine roaring down the highway, I felt the first honest pulse of freedom. That night, I posted the photos. Steak dinner, whiskey glass, then a shot of the Porsche captioned "New Baby." Business is booming. It took exactly 42 minutes before my phone went insane. Madison blew my phone up like a wildfire. 23 missed calls. Paragraphs upon paragraphs. Are you serious? You lied to me. Call me. This isn't funny. Ethan answered me. Finally, after letting her simmer for hours, I texted. It was a loyalty test. You left within 24 hours. That told me everything. She replied instantly, furious, unhinged, panicked. You manipulated me. I was giving you space. This is abusive. And honestly, I didn't care anymore. I blocked her. Monday morning, she texted from her sister's number, then her mum's, then random numbers, her friends, probably. The messages swung from pleas to guilt trips to threats. I miss you. I made a mistake. You can't just throw me away. My therapist says you traumatized me. You owe me closure. Her mum even called, lecturing me about commitment. Commitment. From the family of a woman who dipped the second she thought she'd have to eat ramen with me for 6 months. The next day, she appeared at my office size, swollen, hair a mess, voice cracking every other word. She tried everything, crying, blaming me, then promising therapy, then promising to pay her share from now on, which was hilarious considering she'd never paid a single dollar for anything in 18 months. I told her her things would be boxed up by the weekend. She left crying, security escorting her out like the ending of some off-brand romance film where the villain refuses to accept she's the villain. The following week was chaos, her friends confronting me at bars, her sister calling me late at night, her brother sending me macho texts, mutual friends saying I was harsh, even an old college roommate trying to set up an intervention. An intervention for a breakup. But the moment that sealed it wasn't any of those. It was when her sister's boyfriend called me privately and said, "Dude, she's been staying with us and she won't stop crying. She's convinced you'll take her back." And for the first time, I realized something. She wasn't actually heartbroken about losing me. She was heartbroken about losing what I provided: the comfort, the lifestyle, the certainty that she'd never have to stand on her own 2 feet. 3 weeks after the test, she arranged one final stuntan ambush at a bar where my ex, her sister's boyfriend, my old roommate, and 2 mutual friends sat waiting for me like they were hosting some twisted reunion episode. Madison tearfully begged for another chance, promised contributions, promised therapy, promised a prenup, promised to change everything she had never been willing to change when she thought she didn't need to. And I looked her dead in the eyes and asked, "Why didn't you do any of that when you thought I was broke?" She had no answer, just tears, just fear, just regret that had nothing to do with love. I told her it was over. For good. That's when she snapped, "You're cold. You're heartless." I dodged a bullet. I told her, finally, something we agree on, and I walked out. No dramatic exit. No hesitation. No breaking down. Just release. Since then, my apartment feels bigger, quieter, cleaner. I lost 3 friends who thought I should have forgiven her, but honestly, good riddance. My real friends, they finally told me they were proud. I stopped letting myself get used. Business picked up. The Porsche, worth every damn penny. And Madison, she eventually moved back to her hometown after her sister kicked her out, apparently because she wouldn't stop crying, screaming, and checking my socials like an Olympic sport. She tells people I abused her emotionally, manipulated her, broke her mentally, whatever helps her sleep at night. Me, I sleep fine, better than fine. I learned the lesson I should have learned the first time someone warned me. If someone only sticks around during the highs, they don't deserve a single second of your lows. I wanted clarity. The test gave me exactly that. No regrets, 0.